night one of free agency is in the books, and Jordan Clarkson is a Knick, or at least he will be once he clears waivers in a couple days. But he intends to be a Knick. So we have something for the Knicks on night one of free agency. Plus, are they still interested in Russell Westbrook after some interest peaked in the middle of the day? And is Mike Brown at the top of the coaching heap right now after he apparently got a second interview? So we got lots to talk about today on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. And I want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And on today's show, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about the first night of free agency. So the Knicks not super loud on the first night, which is to be expected, at least as of the time we're recording this. We waited till about midnight Eastern to say, okay, I think we're safe, which means, I don't know, who knows, maybe something will break at 1 a.m. But Jordan Clarkson will sign with the Knicks apparently when he clears waivers. That's according to every reporter on the map, starting with Shams and then Chris Haynes and all the local guys. Everybody says it. So it seems as if people have done their homework and no team is going to claim Jordan Clarkson off waivers, at which point he will sign with the Knicks. They've also been looking at Russell Westbrook, so we'll dive into if that's a good idea, what we feel about that whole thing. And Mike Brown apparently got a second interview. And according to Ian Begley, some other candidates might also get second interviews. So we'll get into the latest of the coaching search. But first, Gavin, Jordan Clarkson. So I thought of so that the Knicks are going to sign him. And I think that the general consensus is that he has fallen off a bit. The last few years, obviously, since he won Sixth Man of the Year, had a great season for the Jazz a number of years ago. I thought of two references that I want to introduce, two similes. I think these would be not metaphors, because I will make a direct comparison at the end. But my first thought was, I thought of an episode of Seinfeld, right? And we've gone through this song and dance before where you say, this player's been declining, but it's just because he's on a bad team, right? And I was thinking about the episode of Seinfeld where Elaine has a boyfriend that is bald, and nice looking dude, but he's bald, and she has to go in his wallet to grab some money or something, and notices his driver's license and goes, "Oh my God, your hair! You were gorgeous back then. Like, you looked so good. Like, why don't you grow your hair back out?" And he goes, "Well, I've been shaving it for a number of years because I like to swim, and it's better for swimming to have a bald head. So, but if you really want me to grow it back, sure, I can grow it back." And then he goes to grow his hair back, and he can't grow it anymore. He has in fact gone bald, and no longer has the ability to grow his hair back anymore. That's sort of where I find myself with Jordan Clarkson, where it's like clearly a guy who is and or was very talented, a former Sixth Man of the Year award winner who has clearly shown some decline, but can you chalk that up to he's just had nothing to play for the last few years? I think the Knicks are just kind of taking that bet and saying, well, maybe he could still grow his hair. I don't know for sure. The other analogy that I thought of for this is he's sort of like Schrodinger's sixth man right now, and we won't really know if he's great or terrible until you open the box and see and let him start getting some time in with the Knicks. But for me, at least, this feels like a worthy dart throw.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it. To your point, I'll throw up for people watching on YouTube because I just got B-Ball Index and I want to show it off. It's only $5 a month. Great investment. The career trend line in a career LeBron for Jordan Clarkson. I almost said Jordan Poole for some reason. So was a negative for large swaths of his career. 2021 and 2022, a little bit into 2023 was a positive. And then to your point, steady downward decline. If you want source of optimism there. The offense is still positive as a whole, though trending downwards again for about 3 years. And the defense has actually trended up from where he was just like an unbelievably bad defender early in his career, and maybe just getting a little bit more savvy with age. Or whatever they're seeing in the LeBron stat, which is just like kind of an all-in-one metric. He's actually like trending slightly up last year. I do think there are some reasons for optimism with him. Played just 37 games last year, had plantar fasciitis in his left foot. Apparently was dealing with that for most of the season. Statistically had a fairly good year by his standards, right? In just 26 minutes a game, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists a game, shot 41% from the field, 36% from three, which I think the year before he was like 28%. So that's an improvement. 80% from the line. He was not afraid to chuck on a terrible Jazz team. 13 shots per game, 6 threes per game. Did just turn 33, which would be discouraging in terms of him bouncing back defensively. Your analogy, I thought of Mikal Bridges, because everyone was saying about him as a much younger player, oh, he wasn't really trying on the Nets, he'll try on the Knicks. And we saw, while in fits and spurts, he looked great defensively. It was a real issue for him to consistently hit the levels he hit in Phoenix. So I would say that's even more of a concern when you talk about a 33-year-old versus a 28-year-old. Fairly high turnover percentage. The assist percentage was elite in 2024, where it was 95th percentile, 77th percentile last season, which is like fine. It's not really great for the amount of usage he had. As far as the types of shots that he got up, very low rim volume, similar to Jalen Brunson, one of the highest volume, like floater range guys in the NBA in terms of his number of attempts. He did not shoot well at the rim. He did not shoot terribly, but he didn't shoot particularly well. For someone who takes about as many like runners and short mid-range shots as any player in the league, which at 6'5", it makes sense with some declining athleticism that is kind of an easy shot for him to get to. He's not really great from there. He is good from long mid-range, probably not a shot the Knicks want him taking a whole lot, and he's solid from three. But I think the thesis here, just to put a bottom line on this in terms of his fit on the Knicks, clearly New York needed a second ball handler. He might not be the only one, because the report from Ian Begley, I believe, is that instead of taking that $5 million mid-level the Knicks have available, he's taking the vet minimum. So they still have that slot. We'll talk about who might use it. You've already mentioned the name. He brings some size, brings some ball handling next to Jalen Brunson. You did want someone that I think, one, is as close to of an elite off-ball shooter as you can, and two, is as little of a defensive liability as possible, and three, this goes with one, but someone who can have a lot of success off the ball. And for all those reasons, I would have preferred someone like Malcolm Brogdon. I don't know if maybe Malcolm Brogdon just wouldn't have taken that. You pointed out that there's an injury risk there with Malcolm Brogdon, but I don't think it is a phenomenal fit. I think for the vet minimum, it's hard to complain about. Like, he might just be, at least offensively, an elevated version of what Campaign was, though I did like Payne's shot profile a little better, and I like the way Payne competes defensively a little bit better.
Yeah, I'll just say on the Begley front, he had just mentioned in a video for SNY, just sort of recapping the day, had talked about Clarkson and his fit, and then was asked about Russell Westbrook, and basically said the Knicks still have their $5 million taxpayer mid-level, which sort of implies that Clarkson is going to come on a vet min. I mean, I think considering that there's been mutual interest seemingly between the Knicks and Clarkson for like 4 years now, maybe this is just someplace he's really wanted to come. And the fact that he was just bought out means that, he might just be like, hey, you know what? I already got like whatever, like $18 million or whatever he just got bought out for. Like, sure, I can come play for like $3.5 million or whatever his number is on a veteran minimum for the Knicks. And they might have kind of drawn that line in the sand too, and been like, hey, if you really want to come here and you really want to play in New York and, whatever, like, that's just the number you're going to have to take. Sorry. You already got a bunch of money this year. So, if it's a prove it deal and you do good, then a lot of teams are going to have cap space next year. And this will be a heck of a place to try to prove that you need a bigger contract with a team that could be one of the favorites in the East next year. All the stats you said, I mean, it all sounds about right to me. I think the big thing for me is just having a guy who can slightly more consistently perform than Campaign would be huge. And hopefully that's what Clarkson can be. Now, granted, I think there's going to be plenty of times where he's just as frustrating, if not more, because I think that he has a little bit less of an inclination to be a distributor while having more of an inclination to just get those shots up. There's the famous Mike Breen and Clyde clip from an MSG broadcast like a year or two ago where they were just disgusted with him in a Knicks Jazz game where he was just taking a horrendous amount of shots.
Am I crazy? Wasn't that this season? Weren't we talking about that on a podcast? I don't know. It all blends
Was it
together.
this
Yeah, we've been
season?
doing
I
this
don't
so
know.
long, but yeah, I
Maybe
don't
it
know.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It all blends together. I just saw the clip resurface. I was like, when was that? I'm like, I don't freaking know, man. I don't remember. I don't remember one Jazz game from another from one season to the next. But anyway, yeah, it'll be a little bit of a shock for those two to be covering Clarkson if he has one of those games again. But yeah, I like it. I think it's a good low lift like dart throw. It's not a huge financial investment. If things really hit the fan, they have more wiggle room than last year. So it's not like they have to nail every single one of these veteran minimum signings this year. So they could potentially like cut him if it really came down to it partway through the season if he's just really not working out. But I'm inclined to think probably it lands somewhere in the middle as far as how good he still is versus how good he's been lately, or how good he was versus how good he's been lately. I feel like we
Mhm.
probably will find a middle ground somewhere in there where he could still be a good spark plug off the bench and ultimately still be mostly a positive, at least on the scoring front, which is mostly what you needed out of a bench guy anyway.
Yeah, I think look, the single biggest thing and where I might be too harsh on this is like I think he's capable of bending a defense and drawing multiple defenders, which I was arguably offensively like beyond the less than optimal lineup usage and Tom Thibodeau's like failures is just a creative offensive mind. Like their biggest issue personnel wise was not really having a second guy who could consistently bend the defense off the dribble. Obviously, Cat in like the best case scenario could do that off the ball, but it really was just Jalen Brunson. It was very clear it was too much on Jalen Brunson's shoulders. Like if Jordan Clarkson is just a regular season innings eater to some extent and someone who can have like a good playoff game or two or three. I know people were clamoring for someone like Gary Trent Jr. in that respect, who also went essentially for the veterans minimum. But I think, and other people point this out on Twitter, like a lot of that has to do with just having like a much larger role for available to him in Milwaukee than what he'd have in New York. Like I think Clarkson can be very useful in that sense and just like generating clean looks for the bench, which I think Campaign did with his pace. And I think Clarkson might, just because of his size and his superior like handle, might have a better chance to do that in the half court than Campaign did. But we're going to get into Russell Westbrook, the other name that was brought up. We're going to get into some of the top remaining free agents. We're going to get into some news about Mike Brown. All that coming up next here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel, and summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Maybe you'll get sunburned at the beach and bet on FanDuel too. Why not? I don't know. But I love using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. I also love they sometimes will just serve you up like pre-made parlay bets that you don't even have to put in the effort. You could just be like, oh, they'll be like, this one's kind of popular. You want to try this one? And I look at it and I go, yeah, I kind of see why that's popular. It's kind of sure, I'll throw $5 at that. That sounds like fun. Every once in a while, it's like FanDuel is like trying to give you good answers. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Anyway, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit fanduel.com to get started. All right, Gavin, we're back in, continuing to talk through Knicks free agency, and Clarkson was it as far as confirmed signings. But the other guy that I think got the most play throughout the day in terms of his name associated with the Knicks was Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much every reporter brought him up at some point or another saying there's interest. There is interest between the Knicks and Russell Westbrook. And it's just going to be a matter of if they secure his services or not. In the little hitter for SNY that Ian Begley did that we mentioned, he had said sort of to the effect of like Westbrook is definitely, there's still like mutual interest even with the Clarkson signing between him and the Knicks. There's also some interest with the Kings as well. The Kings are also likewise kind of flirting with a backup guard option too with Dennis Schroeder, and it seems like that deal might go down possibly overnight or possibly tomorrow, where it seems like maybe there will be a sign and trade with Schroeder for Malik Monk and
Yeah.
some draft compensation going around, according to some of the most recent reporting as we're recording this. But I don't know. That means it's two teams that have just signed a backup point guard, but might still be interested in Russell Westbrook. I'm a little conflicted, but how are you feeling about that particular name popping up?
I was cool with it post Jordan Clarkson. It feels like those two and Josh Hart together just feels like a mess playing together off the bench. Like I almost
Yep.
don't even want to think. And look, if the Knicks, whoever they hire, and maybe it's Mike Brown, is creative enough with their lineups, they could probably make that work. And you could get it to a point where you consistently have enough shooting on the floor and you're leveraging Cat in the right way, but you also throw Mitchell Robinson that equation. Like it just all seems like a mess. Russ in a vacuum, I've always been, I think, lower on him than consensus. Like, I never got why. I sort of just felt like, all right, teams just keep making the same mistake over and over again, bringing him in. And this year, Denver, like, I'm reticent to say it totally shifted my opinion around because he's like one just terrible shooting year and terrible decision making year away from like flipping it back. But I thought he was mostly exceptional for like what the Nuggets paid for him this year. Like, he was playing 28 minutes a game on a top 10 team in the NBA. It was 13 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, like as efficient as you could hope for, right? 45% from the field, 32% from three, like did not shoot well from the line, but he barely got there. Like he was a consistent presence, good or bad in basketball games. He had an incredible first round for them against the Clippers. He had great moments. He had terrible moments against the Thunder, but that's also the best team in the NBA. And they went 7 games despite everyone on that team outside of basically Russ and Nikola Jokic being injured at some point in that series. Like I thought he calibrated his game in the right direction. It feels like his athleticism, though obviously far from its peak, like has not taken a dramatic drop off yet, which I say the same thing about him that I say about LeBron. Like you don't know, that can happen like at any time. Again, like some of the like advanced stats are pretty decent for him. I took more B-ball index plots. That's his D LeBron. Let's say his multi-year LeBron again ticked back up to being like a slight positive last year. The offense was a slight positive last year. The defense was actually the best it's been in a couple seasons. So he is weirdly in his mid to late 30s, like sort of trending the right direction, calibrating his game the right way. So I'm a fan in general at this point. I just think after Clarkson, like it is a weird fit unless the Knicks are going to make some other trade.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it just comes down to like how would he be used? Like I still, for my money, I still think the best year of his post, if we want to call it post prime career or like
Mm.
post OKC did everything career, was with the Rockets when he was used more off ball. Like Mike D'Antoni, to his credit, like actually figured out a way to kind of use him off ball a little bit and have him run baseline cuts and use that athleticism and power to like just get inside and bully guys on baseline cuts and get in for, dunks and layups that way.
They ran pick and roll with him, if I remember. Like he would just
Yeah.
screen and essentially be the big for Harden, which was a lot of fun. But
Which was also crazy. And I mean,
yeah.
you could see a world where maybe that works with Jalen Brunson too, but he is like 5 years older than that now. I think that some of the supernatural athleticism that he used to possess is now just like normal athleticism in his mid 30s. Normal elite athleticism, to be clear. Like he's still just a phenomenally in shape dude for someone who's been playing basketball as long as he has. But yeah, I go back and forth on how I feel about it. I think it's like if you start looking at his shot profile and stuff, it's clear, even without having watched a ton of him, which like I'd be lying if I said I did this year, that he's getting to the rim less and less, which probably has to do with the diminishing athleticism. And you're seeing a lot more like on a shot chart, like more short and long mid-range shots than getting all the way to the rim anymore. And when he does get all the way to the rim, I think he still shot like 67% this year or something, which is solid. But then in that short mid-range, which, is like floater range, shot pretty poorly, like 40% or something like that. So it's clear that like unless he's getting all the way to the rim anymore, he doesn't necessarily have that lift to like get the floaters he needs, or doesn't have the bag to do that, because he kind of was always more reliant on just brute force athleticism to get to the rim than like bag work, like Jalen Brunson, for example, who just kind of gets in there and like pivots guys to death and then sneaks under their arm and like gets a layup up or a floater or whatever that way. So in that respect, a little scary to potentially bring him in, because it's like, are you going to be getting a potentially further diminished version of him in that regard? But also, played well for Denver this past year. It seemed like most people generally said that this was about the best he's looked in a number of years. That said, there was also just, I felt like, constant controversy around like, is Russ being played too much by Mike Malone? Like, are they holding younger players back to play Russ more? Like, whatever. Like, I feel like I saw that a whole bunch of times this year. So in that respect, that's a little scary from just with where the Knicks have been at previous times in the franchise, with dating all the way back to even like Alfred Payton or whatever, like just guys that you generally don't want to see on the floor. And this is not an indictment on him, but just an acknowledgement of that he probably played too much this year. But like a similar type player in Josh Hart, who played like 40 minutes a game this year, and a lot of times we were sitting here being like, couldn't he have played like 30? And you had a couple different lineups out there. I wonder if there would be some of those same feelings about Russell Westbrook. And I guess the last thing is like, in terms of how he's aged, like it just feels like, to me, the parts of his game that were always there are just aging,
Mhm.
and he hasn't really added anything new. He hasn't like found a 3-point shot like Vince Carter late in his career or something like that, where you can look at, or like Jason Kidd, who's kind of a similar player, like different but similar to like Russ in Russ's prime, although Russ was obviously a better scorer in his prime, but like similar in terms of like a do it all, like triple double kind of guard. And then Kidd late in his career added that 3-point shot, completely changed his game, allowed his career to extend further, allowed him to become a player that could kind of transition into the new era of the NBA by the time he hit his last season with the Knicks. But I feel like we're not really seeing as much of that with Russ, and for that reason, it's like, I just hope that they really, if they're going to give him that taxpayer mid-level, which is their only chip outside of veterans minimum contracts to give out as far as contracts go this offseason, I hope that they think that through nice and hard and check the whole landscape and potentially look for a better fit, possibly someone younger that maybe has a little more growing to do, or could take a leap this year or something. Because I feel like if you're investing in Westbrook, you're essentially just like, it's almost like buying a used car. Like, it's a depreciating asset, but it's like, how long until the head gasket blows or whatever? It's like, are we going to get another quality 50,000 miles out of him, or is he going to be a lemon? And it's like, there's no total way to know, because it's even been up and down depending on where he's been playing the last few years and what you get any given year. So I guess that's my main worry with him.
I wish we had a eBay Motors ad coming up. RIP, former sponsor. Two things I'll note. It seems like a bad idea to get a player after they play with Nikola Jokic. Like we saw it with Bruce Brown. We saw it with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They immediately go from career seasons to I'll use your term, to looking like lemons in their next stops. Like Bruce Brown was just sort of robbing combined, and you know what? More power to him. Good for him. Something like $45 million over the last 2 years, and then returns to Denver on the vet minimum. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was awful in Orlando this year after they paid through the nose, and that is certainly part of what prompted the all-in move for Desmond Bane. Russ last season, like I think part of it was he was much more willing, to your point, to once again, like after he acquiesced to James Harden, like to acquiesce to Nikola Jokic in a way he didn't totally do all the time with LeBron James, a way he didn't totally do all the time when he was with the Clippers playing off of Kawhi Leonard and ironically James Harden again. And it helped him because with the Lakers and Clippers in 22-23, he shot a combined about like 26% on corner threes. And then with the Clippers the following year, he was 28% on corner threes, which is third percentile in the NBA. And those were largely wide open. And then last season, he's 42% on corner threes. Like, again, I think some of that is Jokic just being the greatest passer we've seen in recent NBA history with LeBron and Luka and Trae Young. Hat tips to all those guys, but it's probably Jokic, and he certainly lifts guys in unique ways that, as brilliant as Jalen Brunson is, and as much as Cat can do, like some of the stuff like picking him out backdoor from the top of the key, like I don't think he's going to get as clean looks on the Knicks. And a year older, that is going to continue to hurt him. So I think I can best sum up our recommendation as like we could see the upsides there if it was just him or Clarkson in a vacuum, despite the fact that Clarkson is a far better shooter. I honestly probably would have preferred Russ. Given the financial differences, I'm with you. I think I'd prefer they use that money differently. Specifically, again, I'll shout out my guys. Someone like Malcolm Brogdon, I think, would be a much better fit. But Alex, we have one more segment. We'll get into the top remaining guys on the board, and we'll talk a little bit about Mike Brown, possibly, depending on who you listen to, emerging as the favorite for the Knicks head coach. All that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. All right, we're back here on Locked On Knicks. Let's close out the free agency thing, and then we'll give some quick thoughts on Mike Brown, because that might have been a little bit more of a nothing burger than it's been made out to be in some circles. Keith Smith put a tweet out. I did not take a screenshot, so you're just gonna have to listen to me read it. Top remaining point guards on the board. Josh Giddey, he's restricted out of the Knicks price range. Dennis Schroeder, you mentioned it, seemingly headed to Sacramento. I think that would be tough to stomach bringing him in after that Knicks Pistons series anyways. Though he's someone also I would have preferred over either of these two guys. Chris Paul wants to stay on the West Coast. My guy, Malcolm Brogdon. Russell Westbrook, we just talked about. Shooting guard, Quentin Grimes, who is restricted. And unfortunately, with the way teams have decided to spend money, I think the Sixers are to keep him on a steal of a deal, which I really hate because they already have great guards. And I would love for my guy who I root for no matter what to be excelling somewhere that is not Philadelphia. Cam Thomas, restricted, no interest, out of the price range. Duncan Robinson, out of the price range. Gary Trent Jr. has since signed. Tim Hardaway Jr. Maybe that's a name we could batter around a little bit. Amir Coffey, I know that is a name Bobby Marks mentioned for the Knicks. Decent athlete, decent shooter, semi-intriguing, probably not worth the $5 million in my mind. They have Jay Walker. I believe that is Jarace Walker from the Trailblazers. I don't know a ton about his game, but would be another like lengthy wing. I would just kind of trust Pacome at that point. Torrey Craig, Lamar Stevens, not really. Jonathan Kuminga, restricted, not going to happen. Gershon Yabusele, a name people threw out. I think, again, it's kind of creeping towards the Sixers potentially having room to keep him. If there's any world where he would take that $5 million from the Knicks, or if the Knicks could somehow clear a little bit more space, I don't really think that is super tenable for them. He is someone I would absolutely love. Chris Boucher would be second in that category. Alex, I'll let you expand on him if you want to. We're both big fans of his game. Gives you some of what Obi Toppin would potentially give you in terms of shooting, shot blocking, great offensive rebounder, very skinny, not an excellent defender overall. Trey Lyles, he'd be an interesting fit with the $5 million. Larry Nance Jr., he'd be a good fit presence with the $5 million. Center, Miles Turner, no, too expensive. Al Horford, maybe. Mo Wagner, no, and him and Cat would kill each other. Jackson Hayes, probably not. And Sandro Mamukshvili, whose name I'm butchering, who put I almost cursed there. 50 points on the Knicks last year, so that'd be fun. Any of those names interest you that I just threw out?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I think Coffee I need to do a little more work on, but definitely intriguing to me. Weirdly, I feel like it's odd that we're hearing the name Russell Westbrook before we hear Chris Paul in relation to the Knicks. Like CP3 still feels like a good fit.
I think it's come out that he wants to be like in LA or Phoenix just to be close to his family. So I think that would maybe be it. But you know what? The guy's a basketball freak. So maybe that would go out the window with the right offer. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Like it's just, I've always gotten the impression that he would end up linking up with Leon Rose at some point because they talk about each other like as if they're actual family members. So yeah, I don't know. I was kind of surprised to hear his name not coming up in regards to the Knicks, really. Yabu, I think would be cool. I think that he had a nice career resurgence with the Sixers. It's always nice to steal someone from them. I don't know if he's going to go for like $5.5 million a season or if he's earned more than that. I think I saw something the other day that like someone had found like an Instagram post that looked like he had bought a new house in the Philly area like recently. So maybe he's got plans of staying in Philly.
Hey, he could commute. It's like an hour on Amtrak. He could do it.
Yeah. I mean, he could just like live in Philly most of the time and then also have an apartment in New York. I don't know. But Boucher definitely stands out to me as like a nice like swing big that I'd potentially want to bring in. He got up the high or tied for the highest volume from three that he's ever put up in his career this year. Um, and actually in 7 less minutes a game. So I mean, he was just letting him rip. Almost 4 attempts per game in 17 minutes this past year, and shot 36% on them, which was the second best number in his career, only to the other time where he averaged about 4 attempts per game when he shot 38%. So things are looking pretty good for him in his age 32 going into age 33 season. In terms of that, I don't think that he would get quite as much playtime, but like 10 points per game in 17 minutes is solid production off the bench for a big. I feel like the Knicks kind of just off the bench. Like I know that Mitch would come in often and um like he was really impactful, but I feel like they lacked sort of a scoring punch from a big off the bench a lot, and that would be a nice thing to have a guy that can run pick and pop with Jordan Clarkson now, who isn't I know that he's got more of a rep as sort of a soulless chucker, but also a guy that's averaged like 4 or 5 assists per game for most of his career. So not opposed to passing the ball, and probably would not be opposed to running some pick and pops with Boucher. So that's a guy that definitely intrigues me. The interior defense, like he's thin, but like he seems good enough that at least providing some rim defense that he's not like useless there, and he's not going to be a total sieve. So yeah, I don't know, that's probably my guy at this point. But yeah, if we want to move to the Mike Brown news just to close things out. I mean, it's not anything too crazy. It's just actually I'll give props to CP from Knicks Fan TV, who kind of was all over this a couple days ago already, but then everyone else kind of picked up on it today. Mike Brown has apparently had a second interview or was about to today. And then it sort of seemed like everyone was starting to say, well, it looks like he must be the front runner. And I guess that kind of tracks with just common sense. But then Ian Begley kind of, again, in his he did like a 3-minute hit for SNY if you want to just go like his Twitter or whatever to listen to it for yourself. But sort of threw a little bit of cold water on like this being it. Like, oh, this must mean the Mike Brown is the coach then. He was like, no, I don't necessarily know that I would say that. Like he kind of was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Jenkins gets another interview. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Inori, the assistant from the Timberwolves, gets another interview. But it seems like Mike Brown kind of is the leading candidate at this moment, if not like for sure the guy. That said, I'm all right with it, I guess. I don't have too much to add, Gavin, so I'll probably just throw this to you, and then we could probably close out on whatever you think of this. But my main thing is just I think if they bring in Mike Brown, considering some of the same things that we didn't like about Tibbs are part of what people bring up regards to him, like playing a certain lineup that's only barely a positive, way too many minutes, while having lots of experimental lineups do really well in limited minutes. Like that's not great. His offense apparently is really good, but defense maybe leaves some to be desired. So in that regard, I guess my main thing is just if the Knicks zero in on him and he's the guy they think could be their next head coach, I have faith in them that they've done their process and that he should be the guy. That said, I would love if we could see another situation kind of like what we saw with when Tibbs first got hired, where Leon Rose then goes and says, yes, we're going to hire you, but you have to be okay with the fact that we're going to handpick like your top 3 or 4 assistants. And then you can fill the rest of the bench with whoever you want. We basically have an unlimited checkbook here. So have 15 assistants if you really want. Doesn't matter to us, but we want your like top 4 guys on the bench to be these 4 guys. And that's who you're going to have there. Because I think that we saw a pretty huge decline from Tibbs, at least in my opinion, after he started with Mike Woodson, Kenny Payne, Johnny Bryant as his 3 main assistants. And then when the last one of those left this past season in Johnny Bryant, I think we saw Tibbs revert back to some of his worst tendencies in terms of just letting players freelance, not really running much of an offense. And maybe that has to do with Johnny Bryant. Maybe it didn't have to do with Johnny Bryant, but the common denominator is there of, he left and then suddenly things kind of got different. So I think that's kind of where I fall. But at this point, it seems like, at least at this particular moment, Mike Brown is in the lead for the Knicks head coaching job.
Yeah, I will tell people to refer to the episode I did with Matt George, because I did 37 minutes on Mike Brown, and I don't want to shortchange any of that, but I largely agree with a lot of what you said. The stubbornness is really concerning. I think I'm a little bit higher on his defense. He was the defensive coordinator with the Warriors. I know Matt was really emphatic. Like, he would tell you that he's a defensive first head coach, and he's done some good work on that. And I actually think the Kings, relative to their talent, performed pretty well. And it seems like he, unlike Tibbs, is like pretty scheme versatile defensively, if I'm remembering correctly. The lineups is the biggest thing. And that was my biggest issue with Tibbs. So I would really hate to see a repeat of that. Hopefully he learned from some of his apparent mistakes with the Kings, but did a lot of good there. Total professional. I ultimately think it would be fine, if not a super exciting hire. If it is actually the hire, we'll do a much deeper dive. If the Knicks sign anyone tomorrow during the day, I'll have an episode for you. If they sign someone tonight, we'll both have an episode for you together. But until then, he's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you very, very soon here on Locked On Knicks.